systems, operations, processes. We hear that often, but what does that actually mean? Oh, okay. What it means is you will face trials and tribulations and challenges. Document it. Now we can rely, and this was really, I don't even know, was ChatGPT a thing in 2020? I don't know. But now that we have it, put it into ChatGPT, say, here's the problem that we had. What are some solutions that we can have to fix it? Because it's inevitable. You will face that problem again.
I want to know a little bit about your transition from being behind the chair in your salon, being this beauty expert, to stepping fully into the role of a CEO. Can you walk the listeners and myself through that process of what it looked like for you?
So I opened up my salon in 2019. Obviously, a few months later, COVID hit. We closed. I was like, that's it. We're closing already.
That was a fun game. Let's go do something else.
So when we did open, I was like, okay, hit the pavement running. Let's hire people. Let's train people. And it started to grow and swell. And I was realizing very quickly, I cannot do all of this. I cannot be behind the chair. I can't lead my team. I can't answer the phones. There was way too many things. I was stretched so thin. And one of the biggest fears that I had before starting my business was that it was going to take over my life. And I put a pause to opening up a business because I would hear all these other salon owners of like not being profitable and their life is just being taken over by this business. And so I told myself, like, that is not my life. That is not what I'm going to be doing. And so I was slowly transitioning from being behind the chair. So I was training my team and also passing clients over to them until I was able to take the overall revenue that I was producing, which was 100%, down to 5 to 10%, depending on the season.
Okay.
And August 2023 was the last time that I was behind the chair, and I will not go back. And mainly because I've been doing hair since 2002, and mama's hands don't work the same. So I really needed to stop doing hair. And, stepping into a CEO from that is really messes with your mindset because it is such a different thought process from being able to articulate hair design of technical skills from extensions, bridal hair, the fun stuff, the creative stuff, into the legalities, the legal aspects, infrastructure of your company that makes and develops a well-oiled machine. It is using two different sides of your brain. So it's what every business owner should strive for 100%. And I do say that you cannot do both, operate a business and be the service provider. You will be the bottleneck.
Yeah. It's so hard for us as business owners, I think, to get out of our own way. And, did you feel like the disruption of COVID hitting right after you bought the business kind of gave you some sort of a jolt or a jar? Or what was it that really got you to step away fully? Because it was August, you said, of 23. So you're coming up on 2 years sober from doing hair, right? 2 years sober. How have you maintained that? And what was it that helped you keep that momentum? Because I'm certain it was not linear.
Well, I really fell in love with the business aspect of it actually during 2020. And maybe I'm just cut from a different cloth, but I thought, perfect. This is the best opportunity where the salon is closed. I'm going to learn marketing. I'm going to learn Facebook ads. I'm going to learn how to market my business. I'm going to learn how to not be the bottleneck of my business. I hired a coach, spent a lot of money, spent $10,000 to get trained online virtually from a business owner that lived in another state who had 3 businesses, brick and mortar, but also an online business. And so
salon specific or just business specific?
A business, just an entrepreneur. This person, her name is Stacy Tuschel. I actually heard about her from Britt Steva's podcast and really resonated with her message about not being the bottleneck, get out of your own way. You need to build the people and the people will build the business. business. And so her message resonated with me, connected with her, and said, I want to hire you as my coach, because at the end of the day, business is business. We may have different products and different services, but the functionality, the P&L, everything that makes a business operational. And if you've read E-Myth, and if you haven't, any of the listeners, definitely put that on your top list of books to read, because it will give you a new perspective of how you need to grow your business. Build it to sell it.
I love that. And I think you're talking about how you hired a coach from outside of the industry. You own a business. You're a CEO. You just happen to own a business in beauty. And I think a lot of the business and beauty professionals that I talk to in the industry, they sometimes have it backwards. They're in love with the industry and then they kind of accidentally get into the business side versus intentionally looking for a direction and a way to thrive as a business owner. The principles of business, like many of the principles in life, correct principles are applicable across so many disciplines, right? So the principles that you learned from this business coach, it sounds like really set you up to change things in what you did. And I love hearing that. What are some of the biggest maybe surprises or shifts that you took after working with this coach and learning from them? What are the biggest ahas that you faced in that transition that you can share with the listeners?
Really looking at our financials from a different perspective of what are all the different revenue streams that we can have, and not putting all of our eggs in one basket. In addition to creating systems, operations, processes. We hear that often, but what does that actually mean? Oh, okay. What it means is you will face trials and tribulations and challenges. Document it. Now we can rely, and this was really, I don't even know, was ChatGPT a thing in 2020? I don't know. But now that we have it, put it into ChatGPT, say, here's the problem that we had. What are some solutions that we can have to fix it? Because it's inevitable. You will face that problem again. Mm-hmm. And documenting everything along the way of this is how we're doing things. And Stacy, as my coach, her strategy was really centered around marketing and tracking, how many followers do we have? How many emails did we send out? How many were opened? And looking at your data and reporting to determine and dictate what is our next step, and just making sure that you're getting a return on your investment and you're not just throwing spaghetti against the wall. You have a real strategy in place.
So that was exactly what was coming into my mind as you were talking and saying, instead of just throwing things against a wall and seeing what sticks, you were tracking. I did this. I pulled this lever. What results did I get? The only way we can really know, it sounds like from what you've experienced as well, the only way we can really know what is yielding a productive outcome is if we put something together, follow the results, look at the data. I mean, you've got to look at data in order to, and you have to keep track of data in order to look at it. It's very hard for someone who's more artistic and right-brained to get into that space. Do you feel like you're an anomaly as far as being able to do both and access both of them beautifully? Was it something you learned or something that you think you came with naturally, the ability to look at business in that way?
It's an ongoing learning process. The first time that you look at a balance sheet or P&L or a spreadsheet, what is the majority of people thinking? We get math anxiety. We look at these spreadsheets and we're like, what am I looking at? I will say that I have developed a love for marketing, a love for spreadsheets. Every different portion of our business that we can monitor with data, that is what we lean into. And I am obsessed with it because I know my emotions. I feel a certain way. And my feelings are always going to lie or be subjective. But when I look at the data then tells me a story of, okay, we've got an internal issue, or this strategy is not working, or it is working. And whatever is working, either lean into it or don't try to fix something that's not broken.
Yeah. And then if something's broken, even if it's your favorite thing about everything and it was your pet project, I say this so often to my team, facts don't have feelings and data doesn't have feelings. Data just tells a story. You get to do what you want with that information. You can double down on a marketing campaign that's not working, or you can keep supporting a stylist behind the chair who's dragging your business down. That's fine. What you do with the information is your business, but the information does not have feelings attached to it. And it's very, very hard to separate the two. I think especially as a feeler, someone in the service industry, someone artistic or client facing, and that's my passion. I think most people in this industry would relate. So it's very hard to look at something cut and dried and say, this thing isn't working and how do we shift it? Or this thing is working. I don't care if you're bored, keep doing it. This is working for you, right? You're talking about systems, which that's my favorite ever. I want to know a little bit about what your favorite systems are that you implemented during this time and what you think every salon owner should be doing. Let's just pretend someone's listening to this and they don't have a single operations process in place. What would you say to people who are listening that they should implement right away? Maybe your favorite couple.
I don't know if I could necessarily say favorite per se. It's more so we have to have this in place. And a lot of things that I teach and I speak about are really from just pain of this is so annoying. I really don't like this. Life will continue to give you the lesson until you learn it. And so these SOPs have been developed through why do we keep on going through the same thing over again and running into issues? Oh, okay, because we don't have anything in place. So I would say the two things, there's one that I'm currently working on, and that's the key when it comes to SOPs is that you have to revisit it maybe quarterly or at least annually to say, does this serve our business still? Yeah. Because once what worked then may not work now, especially as you're continuing to evolve and level up your business. But having a really strong onboarding process or recruiting process is super important because you can just follow the script of this is what we send out when somebody applies. This is what we send out when we interview them. Here's the questions that we're asking them. Here's if they qualify, here's the next steps, shadowing, next steps. Go through the third process. Here's the offer letter. Here's the handbook. Here's what our career path, having everything like laid out. And yes, you can make it really beautiful. I'm a whiz on Canva. So there's a little bit of my creative outlet as well with graphic design, but having that entire system and flow really helps to save time and keeps things consistent, especially when you are bringing in a new team member. You really want to make sure that this person's characteristics are aligning with what your future vision is for your business. Having those SOPs in place when it comes to the recruiting, onboarding, and the training process, you have to think of duplication. We know that our business, with it being so reliant on people, you want to build your business so it's a no-brainer to stay. But the reality is that all of your employees have the option to leave. Some businesses, if they don't have enough structure in place, it becomes that revolving door. Meaning you're going to have to go through this cycle over and over and over again. And so you might as well have something in place. So I'd say that would be the most important one to have in place. In addition to another thing I'm working on is that exit. What does an exit process look like? So, there's so many that we have in place from marketing to new leads. What's that look like to retention, SOPs for those as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot. They're all necessary.
And I think when you talk about something that we know is going to happen repetitively, there's some little things and hiccups that show up and you're like, that was an anomaly. I don't know when this is going to happen again. There's other things like you're going to be interviewing, hiring, onboarding, and letting go with love people from your business on a very continuous basis. So even just looking at what that process looks like. And I really like how you brought out that what might have worked even 6 months to a year ago could possibly not be what's going to continue to work. What worked to get you here might not be what works to get you where you're going. Mm. And I think that's hard a lot of times for those of us who are looking for a system and a routine and let's set it and forget it. That's really cute, but that doesn't actually speak to the evolving culture and climate of doing business these days. Change is instantaneous. We're dealing with a ton of micro trends, especially in our industry. And so I think being able to reassess and reevaluate on a consistent basis, you've got your foundation put in place with what your process looks like. Maybe you've got a 5-step onboarding process, but let's look at how is that being delivered? Maybe before it was a packet, maybe before it was a checklist. Now it might all be digital, things like that are simple tweaks. But I really like how you brought that forward, that it's necessary to continue to reassess and look if it's still aligned with your culture, what the needs of the current economy are. So I think that's really helpful to remember. Even once you get something dialed in, don't think that it's done. Now you're just tweaking it and fine tuning it. Imagine if I'm hiring and onboarding somebody new every few months and I don't have any systems. I'm reinventing the wheel every time. it can be daunting for me. And I bet a lot of people listening to know that even though I've got a system set in place, which I do, I'm still going to need to reassess it and keep it fresh on a regular basis. Rather than getting overwhelmed by that fact, though, Jennifer, I think it's really important to remember, if you've done the legwork, we've got the chance to just copy paste, make a few fine tune edits, and then move it forward rather than start from scratch. So hopefully that gives people the little bit of boost they need to get a system in place for that hiring and onboarding alone.
I'd love to add to that too. One of my goals and my mission for my business now is, how do I replace myself? Like if something, God forbid, if something happened to me, or maybe I wanted to go away for 3 weeks or, a month at a time, how do I ensure that my business can still operate? Because if it can't, it really test your company to see how well can it operate without you. And that will show you all of your blind spots. So creating the SOP isn't necessarily for me per se, but to the person that is now going to be responsible for the onboarding, the hiring, the exiting. Someone else is eventually going to do that. At least you would want to, because that's what scalability is, where you're not in that position anymore. Someone else is.
And let's just say and hope you're vibrant and healthy forever. This is just so that you can take the 3 weeks off that you wanted to backpack Europe, go offline and serve somewhere at some kind of charity organization. Let's pretend it's because you're going to be gone doing some bigger picture goals in your life, not for any tragedy. But the truth is, we want to be prepared and expect the unexpected. So whether or not it's something beautiful, like an opportunity comes up for you to go do some kind of charity work or vacation, but let's be real, the unexpected comes up. And when we have things in place that can carry our mission and our vision forward, things are so much more seamless. And you talked about replacing yourself. I know that you've used virtual assistants to do this. And, when we first met, I had just barely launched Spark, my company, and it was something that you were familiar with. And a lot of people in a creative profession don't necessarily know, how do I replace myself? Or how do I replace myself in low-hanging tasks using a VA? Talk to me about how you set up automation and how you did that in real time. How did you buy back your own freedom and replace yourself in those ways, if you can share?
Oh gosh. I mean, everything that I disliked doing in my business, I was writing a list of, nope, I do not want to be answering my phones anymore. I started my salon business knowing that it was just me as the main producer, which a lot of service providers go to open up their own salon, and you are only one person. So I knew I didn't have the financial means to hire a front desk person. In fact, the building that we are in does not have a front desk. So I was like, oh, that's perfect, because we don't need a front desk. Who needs a front desk? Until it was like, I'm trying to cut hair. People are, clients are calling. I need to reschedule. I want to cancel. I need to make an appointment. Texting me. I'm like, I can't do this. Someone else has to do this. But if we don't have the space for it, and I don't have a whole lot of time to train someone, who am I going to have do this? So a virtual assistant to answer my phone calls for me. And that was the first move that I made for having replacement, and just setting up technology to make connections so that it's on automation. One important step of marketing is nurturing people. When a new customer is interested in your business and interested in services, they are not going to be ready to book right away and spend money. And when you can set up some automations in place so that emails are going out, text messages are going out, maybe you have somebody who's calling them, those automations are great to have in place for your marketing. So there's so many more automations that you can have when it comes to even like your onboarding process. As soon as someone is hired, you can have automations and triggers in your communication hub that automatically sends them a welcome email, gives them a checklist of what to expect. Yeah. Really, there's so many things that we could be using automation and AI in our business to help speed up time. And using a company like Spark Global and, different companies to help you gain more progress and traction so that you don't have to do the important tasks that need to get done. But there's so much more as a CEO, you as a leader should be focusing on and having your attention on, which is the health and the future of your company.
Yeah. And this is something that you help clients do now in your consulting or coaching. Tell me a little bit about your work there and I really would love to hear what made you know, like what was your aha moment when you realized in your coaching that you were making an impact and really helping maybe a specific person have a challenge that got overcome, or when you saw like this is grabbing a gear, this is resonating with people. Tell us a little bit about your work there.
Yeah, well, again, a lot of the things that I've created really are from my own painful experiences and transformations.
Mm-hmm.
And I love teaching. I love helping someone learn how to do something and giving them the confidence. I'm a student for life and I'm always learning. Even where I am currently in my business, there's always something more that I could be learning and growing from. And I was doing a lot of online teaching and coaching during 2020. And I guess it's one of those things like you don't know what you don't know. And I was coaching salon suite owners who wanted to open up a salon, because the reality is all you need to know is 20% more than someone to be able to help them. And I had that confidence of, well, I did this, so I'm going to also help these people as well open up their businesses. And that was really amazing to be able to be a part of that. Fast forward, the business was just growing so rapidly that I didn't have a whole lot of time to be marketing and coaching. Now that I bought more of my time back because of the replacement ladder of other people who are doing customer service, doing training, doing onboarding, and the daily tasks that need to be done, I hired another coach, Dan Martell, author of Buy Back Your Time, and he has been coaching me since October. How am I replacing myself? How am I going to get out of my own way? And I started coaching because he told me, this is what you need to do. I see all of the information you're putting out there. If I owned a salon, I would hire you to be my coach. And I was like, well, dang, okay. And this is how Elevate started. And I really want to share with salon owners, even if they're getting started, how do you set up marketing in your company? How do you set up your infrastructure of your SOPs? How do you develop that quickly? And how do you scale your business so you don't have to be in the business the majority of the time? So it's a really great thing to watch people transform their businesses by implementing these, even just small things that are a repeatable task that need to get done, that now they don't have to do anymore.
Yeah, I love that. And I think for a lot of us, when we're starting a business, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, all the excitement and promise and energy around it, and it can get mundane and monotonous very quickly. And I think especially if you're doing it well and paying attention to the numbers, the spreadsheets, and the things that you've referenced, it can be easy to lose our zip and our sparkle, the passion we had getting into it. And so what it sounds like working with someone like you would provide, based on what I'm hearing, is why Dan is right. You help shorten the learning curve, where somebody they might start to burn out quickly. They might start to lose that momentum or steam, or they start off strong and they don't adapt and reiterate to continue the growth process. They just kind of like, you get there. And if you sit still, like I always think like life and the world and the journey of progress is like a moving sidewalk. If you're standing still, that moving sidewalk is still going ahead and you are now behind everything. And there's a huge spread. So I think working with someone like you could really help kickstart that and prevent someone from, I would say, fumbling and falling behind and then losing that momentum. I really, really like how your emphasis is on avoiding burnout, how hustle culture is not where it's at, how it's really important to find sustainable ways to keep peace in it rather than losing our minds. Because when we do that, it does actually start to crumble on every level in our lives and our business. So I like that. I like what I understand too about your Elevate is that you're really helping people build peaceful and sustainable businesses versus some big overnight flash in the pan situation. It sounds like your passion is really for sustainability, so people can have success long-term with you and with what they're doing, which I think is awesome.
One of the best characteristics that you can have as a leader is to be adaptable and adapting to the environment, adapting to trends, and having the courage to try new things out. And it's going to be interesting as AI and technology continue to make strong advancements at how the beauty industry specifically will adapt to that. And I believe there's going to be a great divide of the businesses that jump on that bandwagon versus not. And we are going to see a massive shift, especially when we talk about consumer behavior. Consumers are going to want speed. They're going to want right now, instant gratification. Businesses that adopt AI and automations into their business are going to be attracting and keeping team members and customers much longer, more sustainably than the businesses that are not.
Also, to that point, we're recording here July of 2025. This is going to be old news, maybe even by the time it airs. Things change so quickly, and especially in technology. And I think given that we are a high touch, person to person contact industry, at a first crack, it can be easy to dismiss the importance of integrating technology advances and adaptability in the technology space. A machine's not going to cut our hair just yet. It's going to soon enough, but not just yet. And so I think a lot of people in our industry might roll their eyes and be like, yeah, that's different industry, not ours. I think if you're not already anyone within the sound of my voice, pay heed. If you're not already actively looking for ways to incorporate automation using AI in your business, you are behind. You are far behind. And that's not to scare or to be negative. It's just to say, start now. Yesterday would have been better, but let's start now. And I think that is such an important thing to remember. In fact, as you're talking about adaptability, may I read what's right behind my computer? I won't turn my screen around because it is an amazing, beautiful, creative mess on my wall of my inspiration. But I would like to read something to you that I have here by Charles Darwin. It's a quote that I read and popped up when I saw it, I loved it because it reminded me of how I haven't died yet. And it says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change." And what you just said is basically what our friend Charles Darwin said. It's not the most talented salon. It's not the most skilled professional, and it's not the most beautiful space, the best leadership. It is the most adaptable. Adaptability is everything, especially right now. And speed is more critical than ever. And I think that it's easy to confuse speed with being rushed, chaotic, or hectic. I would say it's actually more about slowing down to go faster. Slow down and not do so much to move the needle forward and make those advances. And it's not about rushing and burning yourself out. It's about turning things over to technology, to automation, and to maybe an in-person or virtual assistant. So thank you, Charles. Thank you, Jennifer, for the reminder that being adaptable is critical now more than ever. And that great divide, man, jump on the bandwagon, jump on the train or get run over is what's going to be happening. So definitely appreciate that. Talk to me a little bit about the KPI metrics that you're seeing currently that really move the needle. What things are you coaching to for your clients, or what things are you monitoring on your team that you're seeing make the most difference right now today?
I would say, so again, as a lover of spreadsheets, I do look at every single number because to me, I internalize each number has some story. For instance, average ticket, I know that when that's down, I know that my team is struggling with sales. They're struggling with talking about conditioning treatments, talking about recommendations for products. And so that's my indicator of we have to crank up coaching, maybe a competition. There needs to be an action plan connected to every KPI so you can dial things up or turn it down where need be. Same thing with utilization. There's going to be times in your business where you have an influx of new hires that don't have clientele. Your utilization drops. It doesn't mean that it's unhealthy. It just means now we got to crank up marketing for new clients or try to retarget lost customers so that we can get our team busier. And that will then increase our utilization. Utilization could also tell us it's time to hire or it's time to increase prices. So understanding the playbook, understanding the game about every KPI is so important. Obviously, the one number that I always look at is our overall revenue. We have a target goal of when we hit that, all profits solve all problems, right? Money solves all problems. When we have a higher revenue coming in, it feels easier. You said something about, this hustle culture. This is hard work. And you will feel like you're on a hamster wheel at time when you're You got to hire, you got to build them up. You got to make sure that they're happy, make sure that they're staying, make sure they're performing at your standard and your expectation, holding them accountable to it. And so the KPIs that I look at is a huge dashboard, but definitely the overall retention is something we look at. I look at utilization quite a bit as well, in addition to that average ticket, because that's where I know my manager can step in to help them. A lot of times our staff is struggling with mindset. If they are having money issues, they hold back from talking about things to recommend because they have this relationship with money that's not healthy. They don't want to say anything because they think to themselves, I could not afford that right now, so I don't even want to ask. Or we've got this sick, we have this fear of rejection, and it stops us always from living out our fullest potential. It's not enough just to track things. Look at it on a daily basis, but do something about it. Don't all of a sudden take a look at the end of the month and say, what the heck happened? Like, put the responsibility, if all things rises and falls on leadership, it's time to step it up and say, we got to do something about this before it's too late.
I love that. All the information in the world does you no good if you're not actually being accountable for it as the leader. The buck stops here and the inspiration starts here. So that's so important. And these little numbers, you bring up this little there's like a lag in sales. There's a lag in rebooking. Those metrics tell us we have hesitation. There's an area we can coach to. There's an opportunity. And I think when we wait till it's an actual problem, if you want to call it that, we've waited too long. When we're seeing tremendous turnover, we missed the boat a couple of steps ago. And I think that's something that I have struggled with personally as a leader, getting comfortable, complacent, autopilot, and then realizing, if we can, and also if not, I will have this stricken from the podcast, just so you know. But if we can talk about a little bit of the turnover you faced and the struggle you had at the beginning of this year, I think, you've got your stuff dialed in. This is buttoned up. You are running a tight ship, and you are a passionate, beautiful, inspiring, and really generous leader. It's clear in everything you do. And you still dealt with some turnover and some challenges. Is that something you're comfortable diving into a little and talking about how you push through it? Because I think, looking at your highlight reel of all the things you've accomplished is so inspiring, but to know that that's something you struggled with doesn't make me happy to hear you've faced that challenge. It helps me feel inspired to see that you've overcome it and that you're thriving here just a few short months later.
Yeah, I would say that looking back, in the moment, in the thick of everything, I'm like, this is it. I'm probably going to close my business now. And also kicking myself of like, well, why did I hire that person to begin with? Like, we can't just have warm bodies in our business. And as your business grows, as me as a leader, I've evolved so much. The amount of wealth of education that I have and experience with all of my mentors that I have hired and have been working a close basis with, I'm not the same person that I was. And even at the beginning of the year. And that's a good thing. You want to continue to grow and evolve. But I do look back and I'm like, I don't know why I hired that person to begin with. And sometimes you realize as you're wanting to grow that you have the wrong person in the wrong seat or just the wrong person altogether. And, we had 4 of our newest interns all leave or get fired, or it just did not work out. And a manager also leave, and then a high performer leave, and all within 4 months period of time. So
that's really overwhelming, by the way. Like, anybody who's faced that, it's just defeating. So
yes and no, like, this is where you have to put your game face on and be like, this is business. So, put on your big curled pants and buckle up and do better, get better. And sometimes you got to slow down to speed up, which that's it. We were forced to. And even right now, I could ask each of my team members and they would say, it's never felt better. So what you think is like meant to harm you is actually protecting you. Of course, it's not fun. Nobody wants to go through that, like those painful moments, but this is how you have to just learn from it. Yeah. What worked, what didn't work, let's move on. You've got people, I get emotional talking about it because it was tough, but you have people who are still there. They're relying on you.
Nobody wants to have their ass kicked. I do not like it. Thank you so much for opening up on that. I've actually never gotten emotional on a podcast before, so I'm okay with admitting it, mostly because what you're saying is so relevant, not only to myself, but even just hearing you, like, I feel what you're saying. I think many people can. And it's so impactful to hear that from someone who's now thriving. And just to hear you say what a short several months later that your team would all say, nothing, this has never felt better. Mm-hmm. It's so empowering to me. And I think taking that ass kicking and looking forward to what am I going to learn from this? And like you straight up, you called it out. I mean, I feel like I'm just going to go ahead and sit down over here while you finish saying all the stuff you're saying because it's so high impact. Do better already then. Do you like what it is? Mm-hmm. If the answer is no, do something about it. And it's really powerful. There's not a lot of time to sit and mope when you live in that energy. But that's why someone like you is now dealing with a business that's thriving a few short months after thinking, well, I guess this is it. And I love hearing that, not hearing that you were discouraged, but hearing that this is where you're at now. And this is where all of us who find ourselves in a dip can be. And I'll tell you right now, for anybody listening, one of my favorite team members just let us know that she wants to switch industries. She doesn't see that this is sustainable for her body. She's a great producer. Not only that, but I adore her. I've known her since she was literally a baby. She's dear to me. And so I'm sad knowing that she's going to leave. I want her to do whatever is best for her, but it's hard on the heels of another team member. Just in the last month, she's going to go live with her soon-to-be fiance and move out of state. Things like this that are turnover, not due to maybe even poor leadership or problems and trouble in paradise, but just this happens. People move and shift, and it can feel very discouraging as a leader. And change is hard, but it's not the strongest, the most talented, or the smartest that's going to survive. It's the most adaptable. And you delivered in your example, adaptability in spades, Jennifer.
I will say, like, this business is definitely not the weak, because, to be lied to have somebody steal from you, to have someone betray you, like, you have to keep going. And I sit in my office, and I'm very thankful that I go into the salon now maybe 5 times a month. And, it's through those systems and processes that have helped. And it definitely was, you have to count your blessings. You always have to stay in a state of gratitude, because last year we were just shy of hitting 7 figures. One top 200 salon, second time now. And for the things to shift and change is like, oh my God, do I have it in me? But then I look at my vision board in front of me of all the things that I still have left in me to accomplish and to give back to the community and back to my industry. Yeah, it hurts your ego because people leave the leader. And it was just one of those awakenings and ass kickings that I needed to say, I got to get better. I got to get better, because I have loved this industry since 1997. Okay, what else am I going to do with my life? This is my life here. Yeah. And it was hard to show up on social media. It still feels a little bit difficult. But I'm human. I make mistakes, and there's a lot of things that I'm really great at, but I also know that I am always getting better, and just making that conscious decision and choice to dust yourself off. God's got this, and just keep going.
I think there's nothing that you could have said better than that, which you just shared. I am so appreciative of the power behind your message, the humility that you show. You even reference ego, but the humility you show, and the being a perpetual student, always having that beginner's mind, and how impactful it has been, not just for me learning from you today, but for me watching you, and from anybody who's had the chance to be on your team, be led by you, or to be coached by you. For anybody listening to this who wants to see where the next ass kicking and the next level up is going to be for you, Jennifer, where can they find you? Where can they follow you, and how can someone work with you?
Yeah, I would love, well, first of all, Heather, thank you so much for having me on the podcast and giving me the platform to share my story. And it's always an honor. And if anybody's interested in connecting, I'm always on Instagram. You can find me at Jennifer Jade Alvarez. And if you want to work together, just send me a DM. I'm always on Instagram. So always looking to network and meet other people in the industry. If there's anything that I can help you with in your business, I'm super transparent. I'm an open book, and I'm here to make an impact and help the beauty industry get better.
I love that. I love that passion, and didn't even mention your podcast where people can find you on that, which is incredible that you've been working on for multiple years now. Would you mind, sorry and forgive me, would you mind sharing that out? And that will also
Yes.
the show.
Yeah.
Notes.
And Heather is going to be a guest on my podcast. We're going to get to share her story and learn more about Spark Global, of course.
Tell us where we can find your podcast. And sorry that I got this far into the show, just and wanted to mention it so people who want to hear more from you can find that. Tell us the name of your podcast.
The Beauty Business Game Changer podcast. You can find it on all platforms where podcasts are played.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, everything will be linked in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time, and anybody for listening. I'm sure you've gotten a lot out of this just like I have today. I appreciate you.